Hello, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to share our thinking today around the new logic of work, including a major product announcement. Earlier this year, Mark Andreessen described our move to hybrid work as a permanent civilization shift that may be the most important thing that has happened in our lifetimes, possibly more important than the creation of the internet itself. This is quite a statement coming from the creator of the first internet browser and leading Silicon Valley venture capitalist. We think it captures the magnitude of change and the opportunity in front of us. In large parts of society and work, we're increasingly decoupling physical location from economic opportunity. People are following their dreams, changing jobs, and moving to new cities or even exploring more nomadic lifestyles. If you think about it, this is really the first time in human history that much of modern work can be done anywhere, independent of where you live. Hybrid has also opened up our ability to work from your front porch, be on time for your kid's softball game, and score a job at the company of your dreams. Yet the shift to hybrid is, and will be, messy. We're only at the very beginning of it. We believe there's a better way to do it. We don't have to default to the way we did things before, that we are, quote, going back to the office or doing it how we worked pre-2020. This is our chance to reimagine what work can really be. We can do it better and differently than we've done before. More collaborative, more productive, and maybe even a lot more fun. This is incredibly exciting stuff and a huge opportunity for Logitech, a company that's been empowering remote and hybrid work for years. Companies who win in the hybrid world will be relentless champions of human connection and collaboration, empowering users with the right tools to keep them healthy, to work on their own terms, and to have an equal voice at the table. Experimentation and iteration, they're the name of the game. We need fresh thinking about the way we work and collaborate. Companies are finding that success is not simply about offering a combination of in-office and remote working. It's much more complicated than that. We've seen distributed teams struggle to collaborate on video because it's difficult to replicate the experience of being there in person. We sometimes strain to see and hear everyone clearly. We hesitate to find the right moment to jump into a conversation from a distance. And we're often limited in our ability to perceive nonverbal cues, the nuance of body language, the room context for people in the back of a conference room, or ideas scribbled on whiteboards. Many of us have realized that personal workspaces are often not meeting hybrid work requirements. When offices were forced to close, I'm sure many of you were like me. I grabbed whatever I could from my office desk, thinking it would be good enough for a few weeks. Boy, was I wrong. We cobbled together work-from-home setups that were suboptimal. And I'm guessing many of you have yet to improve on these hacks. Distributed teams require a new level of collaboration and experimentation between IT, workspace design, and people and culture. There's some great innovation happening around collaboration spaces, but it's hard for IT managers to keep up. At Logitech, we've been working at the center of this seismic shift all along. You know us as the leader in mice and keyboards, but we've also quickly and quietly become the world leader in video collaboration. You might not know, but roughly 1 out of 2 conference rooms worldwide are powered by Logitech video collaboration. I'm super proud of what we've done there. And we ourselves have been working in a video-first distributed way for nearly a decade. In fact, we released over a dozen new products with remote teams during the height of the pandemic. Today, we'll share some of the latest advancements in technology that are aimed at helping with hybrid work's biggest challenges. Now, we don't have all the answers, but we do feel an obligation and a passion to help figure it all out with you. This hybrid world requires an entirely new approach, an approach that can elevate human connection, make sure people are seen and heard, and ensure teams are motivated, inspired, and have the right tools to be successful. In short, the new logic of work requires a shift in our thinking. To tell you more about the new logic of work, I'd like to hand it over to Hayley.
Thank you, Scott. As you know, Logitech is committed to making work better, easier, and more comfortable for everyone by continuously researching, evaluating, and responding to how work changes. Welcome to the new logic of work, where people are no longer human resources, but key stakeholders. Today's workforce, especially generations coming up into management roles now, want to work for companies who are invested in their success and well-being, for employers who prioritize and offer a top-notch employee experience, taking into account individual and unique needs, the spaces where people work, and how they want to use those spaces. The new logic of work, where people are empowered to work from anywhere. Now, we know the future of work is not a one-size-fits-all equation. Work tools need to be inclusive and tailored to meet everyone's needs. People should choose the solutions for their personal workspaces that best fit their lifestyle and work style. Because when people look great, sound great, feel good, they can do their best work. And with personalized headsets and webcams, docking stations for clean cabling, this all goes a long way towards creating a more conducive environment for creativity and productivity. The new logic of work, where companies promote physical and mental well-being by giving people the tools they need to be productive and engaged, such as ergonomic mice and keyboards that reduce pain and increase productivity. People need the option to be standing or walking around the room while they speak and have the camera follow their movements and train of thought. My favorite is the walk and talk, where I need great audio for a one-on-one. Individual choice is crucial to setting employees up to succeed, and it goes beyond tools. Everyone has to find the right balance between work and play. When I'm working, I want to be focused and productive, and of course, comfortable. And when I break for the day, I don't want to feel fatigued, which is precisely why I need tools that enable a mix of standing, sitting, and being in motion throughout my day. The new logic of work, where we create the right environments for collaboration. The office is not the only place where we go to work these days. The old way of work is going to an office, sitting at a desk all day. Well, now we're really reimagining what office spaces can be. We want to go in and chat, brainstorm, socialize, and share ideas with colleagues. We want comfy spaces, outdoor spaces, rooms that are configured for our collaboration needs, with video solutions that truly enable every person to be seen and heard. We can strive for equal representation on our teams, whether remote or in person. Because work is now done on a spectrum. From home to office and in between spaces, we need all spaces to be video spaces. In the new logic of work, everyone can participate equally. And to tell you more about how we're specifically enabling this, I'd like to turn it over to Ricardo.
Thank you, Hayley. We know from research and personal experience that being able to clearly see someone's eyes, their expression, the way they speak, understand their gestures, is a fundamental part of human behavior that helps us develop trusted, authentic relationships and foster a sense of belonging, even with folks that have never met in person. We also know that every knowledge worker is different. If you take an executive, a developer, an analyst, a designer, or someone that works in engineering, and spend time with them, observe them, and understand their pain points like we do with our research teams, you'll find that each of them has particular needs around workflow, ergonomics, and aesthetic preferences. Ultimately, they all have something in common, which is the desire to create, build, make an impact, and thrive. At Logitech, we believe that we should consider individual needs and preferences for all people, and that any space where work happens should be video-enabled. From a design and product development perspective, we often think about the work we do through a series of experience dimensions, and I'd like to walk you through a few of them. Let's start with individualization and choice. Earlier this year, we pioneered a new product category, collaboration docks, with LogiDock, an all-in-one docking station with speakerphone, which now allows workers to be headset-free, comes with meeting controls, as well as desk decluttering superpowers. We introduced Brio 505 with HDR, built-in privacy, and show mode. Powered by an accelerometer and an innovative mount design, it now gives workers the option to share documents and physical objects at their desk. We grew our Zone family of headsets and now serve a wider spread of preferences. with Zone True Wireless, our Zone Wired earbuds, and more recently, Zone Vibe, our ultra-light circumaural headsets designed for all-day comfort. And we continue to lead innovation in creating tailored tools that promote well-being and productivity for all people with Lift, which now comes in left and right-handed versions. It's ultra comfortable and can be part of a beautiful work setup. Personal workspaces are about individualization and choice. We give you a wide array of options so you can choose the best fit for individual needs and roles. Simple to use, this is our obsession with removing friction from video meetings and lowering the barrier for participation. One touch to book a meeting, one touch to join a meeting that works the same way in every meeting room, one touch to share a whiteboard into the video meeting, and now one touch to join a meeting from home with Logidoc. Hear and Be Heard is about clear audio communication regardless of location and context. With RightSound, our audio technology that uses AI-based noise canceling, we create protective bubbles of sound to make sure users can hear and be heard, and we give them options. In-ear, on-ear, and over-the-ear, boom and boomless, wired and wireless, with passive and active noise canceling. We know options are important, in particular when it's something that people wear over extended periods of time. For our meeting room devices, our products are calibrated to meet the audio needs of small, medium, and large meeting spaces. And we also give IT folks flexibility. Depending on the room size, geometry, and the materials in the meeting space, you may want to add audio enhancements, and that's where our Rally mic pods come into play. You can pair them up with any of our Rally devices, all the way up to 7 for large meeting spaces. See and Be Seen is about increasing visibility for all participants. With RightSight, we make sure people can see and be seen. Some of our webcams feature auto framing. We introduced show mode with Brio 505. We brought the traditional whiteboard into video meetings with Scribe. And we just introduced RightSight 2 with Grid View, so you now have an option between grid, speaker, and group views. We believe our solutions solve many challenges around hybrid work, but we also see an opportunity to make meetings more equitable, specifically in medium and large rooms. To describe the challenge in these spaces and introduce you to our new solution, I'd like to hand it over to Henry.
Thanks, Ricardo. Meetings today combine participants dialing in from the home office, the lake house, and a conference room. Those who dial in remotely are often clearly visible to others, especially those using Logitech webcams. Unfortunately, the same isn't always true for participants joining from a conference room, in particular, those in traditionally shaped medium and large size rooms. While it's nice to think that most meetings look like this, the reality is much messier. The speaker is often not visible, and when the content is shared, the situation is worsened. This makes it hard for remote participants to feel part of the conversation, which introduces challenges around collaboration, team dynamics, and culture. Over the past several years, we've thought a lot about how to improve the video experience for traditional room layouts. I'd like to walk you through several approaches we've considered. We'll call the first approach front of room. In this approach, we use AI and computer vision to frame meeting participants and present them similarly to those dialing in. This approach, which we support with RightSight 2, is particularly effective in smaller rooms. However, in medium and large rooms like this one, it can be less effective because meeting participants tend to speak to each other and not look at the camera. And in-room participants can inadvertently block out the active speaker by simply leaning forward in their chair. We think RightSight 2 has significantly improved the remote participants' experience. But for some rooms, a single camera is not enough. The second approach we considered was building a standalone 360 camera. Traditional 360 cameras can capture participants when the conversation is taking place across the table. But as soon as the in-room conversation switches to remote participants, things start to fall apart and the view of those in the room is far from ideal. To put it another way, we've simply traded one problem for another. Additionally, some 360 cameras offer a panoramic room view to provide spatial context. But many of our customers remarked on how unnatural this type of viewing experience can be. Think about it. The gentleman in the black shirt is sitting next to the woman in the white blouse, but they're on the opposite sides of the screen. Also, these devices typically include a speaker. This results in a remote participant's voice coming from the center of the table, while their video is in the front of the room, once again creating an unnatural collaboration experience. The third approach we considered was using multiple discrete cameras placed throughout the room. Let's call it stadium. With this approach, multiple cameras capture participants from various angles to avoid some of the issues I described earlier. But the question you might be asking yourself is, where do you place the cameras? Installing them higher on the wall provides a security camera-like viewing experience. Placing them at eye level makes it far too easy for in-room participants to block the camera's view. And if you have glass walls, well, then things just got way more complicated. Beyond those challenges, this approach requires multiple cameras, even for medium-sized rooms. And as many of you will remind me, the cost of these devices can pale in comparison to the installation costs like running power and Ethernet in walls that it was never meant to include them. The fourth approach involves changing the physical design of the room. We call it stage. In this approach, crescent-shaped tables are used to ensure all participants are facing toward the front of room camera. This avoids participants blocking the camera's view and allows for our RightSight to grid view feature to frame everyone individually.
This is an effective approach, but mainly for smaller group meetings, since the layout changes a room's maximum occupancy.
For medium and large rooms, we believe there's a better approach to solve the meeting equity problem, and I'd like to play a short video to introduce you to it. Pretty cool, right? Our approach involves using multiple cameras with multiple viewpoints to follow the conversation just as if you were in the room. For example, when an active speaker addresses remote participants, we use the front of room camera. And when they address someone across the table, we automatically switch to the tabletop view. This way, we always present the speaker in a natural view, which gives remote participants the feeling that they're part of the conversation. It's as if you had a professional cameraman in the room. We're going to unlock this experience with Logitech Sight, our beautiful tabletop camera system that works as an extension to Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. We've designed Logitech Sight to deliver on 3 simple principles. Let's start with better video. Logitech Sight uses 2 4K cameras, onboard AI, and computer vision to perfectly capture and frame meeting room participants. The dual camera system creates a 315-degree field of view capture area, ensuring everyone at the table can be seen, and at the same time, avoiding capturing the front of room displays. We combine the tabletop view with the front of room view and intelligently decide which has the better view of the active speaker. To further enhance the experience, we're working on deeper integrations with our key partners, Google, Microsoft, and Zoom. With Google Meet, our integrated support of RightSight 2 will be further extended by Sight to present virtual attendees with the best view of the in-room action. With Microsoft Teams, we will provide intelligent camera experiences with multiple video streams to enable the next generation of inclusive meetings. And with Zoom, we will expand our Smart Gallery integration to include in-room participant views from the tabletop perspective. For better audio, Logitech Sight includes our most advanced microphone system yet. The 7 beamforming mics with advanced AI noise suppression accurately identify active speakers. Additionally, the same microphones allow Sight to capture the conversation. This means, for rooms where you would normally use a mic pod, you can now just use Sight. And yes, Sight even includes a mute button. And finally, simple to install. We've engineered Sight to be really simple to deploy, even in existing rooms. That way, there is a more consistent video experience across the organization. Installing Sight requires just one Cat6 cable from Rally Bar or Rally Bar Mini and a power connection at the table. In the future, we will enable daisy chaining to Sights, making it possible to support even larger spaces. Sight can be easily mounted on various surfaces. The included table mount uses a micro-suction lining, allowing for a secure installation without requiring drilling or using more permanent fixtures. The included grommet mount offers a completely secure installation while also tucking cables away neatly. And the built-in tripod thread allows for more flexible configurations for spaces that use U and V-shaped tables. And that's Logitech Sight. It will be available in the summer of 23, with beta for select customers beginning this winter. Logitech Sight joins our ecosystem of products that truly level the playing field for distributed teams. We have the ability to ensure all participants are represented equally, no matter where they are. At your desk, the webcam makes sure you're in focus, defining your presence in the conference room. In smaller rooms, Grid View ensures you show up with your colleagues side by side on the screen. And for medium and large rooms, Sight makes sure everyone feels included. We're blurring the lines between being there in person and participating remotely. And that's how we move closer to meeting equity. Now back to you, Scott.
So, there you have it. Success in the new logic of work requires fresh thinking. As you can see, we have an opportunity to do things differently, for work to feel better, more creative, more productive, more immersive. Work has the potential to be sensitive to our unique needs and, most importantly, more equitable. We're excited to make real improvements here. In some ways, our work is only beginning. This is just the first chapter. I hope you can see from what we've shared today, we're making great progress. We're listening and partnering with you in new ways. In this period of trial and error, let's innovate together and create the new logic of work. Now, let's open up the discussion. I'm sure you have lots of questions about our new product, Logitech Sight. So we've invited a panel of product experts to join us and answer your questions. I'd like to bring back Henry and introduce you to Alan Smith and Holly Zhao, Product Manager and Product Marketing Lead for Sight. Welcome, Henry, Alan, and Holly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A with Scott, Henry, Alan, and myself. We're really excited to have you join us. We are broadcasting live. I think it is 11:25 on the West Coast, and we're really excited to listen to your feedback and answer some live questions. So please continue the conversation in chat and submit your questions to our panel here in Q&A, and we will answer and discuss many of them in the next half hour. Okay, starting off, I've got a question from an anonymous viewer about how large do we think a room should be meant for Sight, and how many people kind of around the table for a larger room can Sight pick up? Maybe Alan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that one. So when we designed Sight, we identified both a range that the microphones would pick up and then also the camera range that made sense. So the table size that makes sense for Sight is right around 14, 15 feet. And so if you think about how many people you can get around that size of a table, that's probably the appropriate number for the usual setup.
Is it like a dozen, Alan? For how many people is that?
Yeah, that's right around 10, 12, yes.
Okay, so like a medium size conference.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I've got a follow-up question from Maricel here. Thanks for your question, Maricel, about how does Sight work to connect with the main front of room camera, and also when we're daisy chaining or connecting two sites in the future, how does that all work with the front of room camera?
Yeah, that's something we actually thought a lot about in trying to make the installation of Sight easy and convenient for people when they're doing the installation. So if you think about, we've got the front of room camera, for example, the rally bar, and then we've got Sight sitting on the table. How do you make that connection between the two? So we heard a lot of feedback saying that, hey, let's use cables that we can customize to the exact length that we need. And so we're using category cable to run from Sight to the rally bar. So the installation is pretty simple. The range we're looking at, if you're thinking about how long of a run we can do, is probably around 35 meters or about 115 feet. So that should work for most rooms. Then when you connect a second Sight, so at launch we'll be supporting a single Sight. Post-launch we'll be able to daisy chain two. To connect the first Sight to the second Sight, again, is just category cable. So again, I can set up the exact length of cable that I need, and the connection is very simple.
Now, you've just been speaking about the size of rooms that Sight works in and how it picks up people around the room. But what about non-traditional setups? Or what are types of deployments maybe beyond a traditionally long room with a long table? Have we thought about how Sight works in kind of non-traditional setups?
Yeah, absolutely. So while we understand that most rooms are going to be the traditional, you've got a table, a long table, the screen and the camera at the one end of it. There are other rooms that are a little bit different. So for example, if you've got a V-shaped table. So in that scenario, we've thought about that, and we include in the package a tripod mount. So in a V-shaped table in the middle where you'd want Sight to be, typically there's nothing there. And so if you wanted to put either a stand or a tripod mount, or a tripod, you could mount Sight in that situation. So, and maybe just to continue on talking about the mounts. So we include mounting for on top of the table, for through the table, and the tripod mounts. On top of the table, so imagine if you've got maybe a glass table or a table that doesn't have any grommet holes. The base is going to sit there in place. We include microsuction on the bottom. So that microsuction it's not an adhesive, but it is actually feels sticky, and so it's going to hold Sight in place very nicely. And so you want Sight sitting in the center of the table. You don't want it moving around. You want it such that if someone bumps it, it isn't going to tip over. So that's one mounting method. If you have grommet holes and you want to make probably the more secure and then hide all the cables underneath the table, that's an option as well. And so there's Sight mounts on top of the hole. There's a lock nut underneath. All the cables run underneath. So a lot of flexibility in how it's mounted.
So Alan, let me get this straight. So if you have a U-shaped table, you no longer need to put a camera or a mic pod on a chair, like most people do. They can do something better.
I think we can do something a little bit better.
All right, that's good, because I know we've all seen a lot of that, and I think we need to eliminate that.
Yes.
Yes, that seat should be for participant rather than one of our mic pods dangling around with cables flying around. So there's a lot of intentionality, not only behind the setup and the mounts, but also where you place Sight with the kind of permanent and non-permanent sticky fixtures. When it comes to other intentionality behind the design, there's a question here also about how does Sight work to pick up people and how they're facing either to across the table or to the front of the room, between maybe nonverbals or gestures or audio. How does the magic happen? How does the intelligence happen?
Yeah, I'll start off on this. Maybe Henry can add something afterwards. But so So if you think about what Sight is doing, the intent of Sight is it sits in the center of the table. It's going to work in conjunction with the front of room camera, identify the talkers in the room, and frame them nicely. And so the way we're doing that is with both voice and video. So on top of Sight are 7 microphones, and those 7 microphones are able to determine the direction of arrival. So in other words, it's able to tell where the active talker is in the room and then use the camera to frame that person. And so the voice is being used to identify where the talker is, and then the camera is used to frame them properly. And the AI for the video is such that it allows us to know, for example, if I'm looking this way or looking this way. So if I'm looking across the table and talking with a colleague, or if I'm looking at the front of the screen and talking with someone on the remote end, the camera is able to identify which way I'm looking.
Yeah, I think Alan said it well. I think the magic sauce really is how you make these multiple devices work together. So when we started this project years ago, we quickly understood that to execute on something like this, especially with multiple Sight-like devices, you need an incredible amount of compute. And there's really no single compute that can just kind of handle this level of processing. So we intentionally designed this distributed compute system. So each Sight looks small and beautiful, but it's actually a supercomputer in each device. And each device has its own onboard AI that detects and understands the scene. And where the magic sauce is really it's connecting all these devices and letting them talk to each other in real time to identify the active speaker, to deduplicate individuals in the room. So you can imagine if there's 2 Sights and they see one person, they both would see it. They have to decide which of the Sights has the better view of that active speaker. And then once that information travels to the rally bar also once again has to do that deduplication. So sort of like the AI director kind of concept. And then what we'll be able to do is overlay. And that's really where we see the big opportunity over the next few years is how do you expand that beyond just active speakers, but also to detect those nonverbal cues like head nods, eye rolls, smirks, that sort of stuff. So there's a lot for us to do there. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think just how, like you painted in the video earlier, there's a lot of, it looks great from the audience perspective of how we're seeing the best facing view and hearing clearly the conversation in the room. And to your points, a lot of intelligence and thought behind not only the field of view, but with the placement of the cameras and how that works all together with the front of room camera. I've got a question submitted anonymously here about how does Sight and this multicam system differ versus just a standalone tabletop camera? What are the additional benefits we see that it adds to maybe a competitor like Owl or other standalone 360 cameras?
Yeah, I could talk about it. I talked a little bit about it during the video, but I would kind of just repeat some of this stuff. There's definitely some very strong merit for that tabletop view, specifically in those kind of longer, some call it bowling ball alley-shaped tables. When that conversation happens across the table, we do feel like that tabletop view can provide an incredible amount of value. But as we all know, the conversation quickly turns to the remote end. So for example, someone's presenting a PowerPoint and everyone's looking to the front of the room. Or you're speaking to someone on the remote end. And at that point, that's where that sort of tabletop experience starts to fall apart. And I think that the beauty is taking both views, combining them, and intelligently switching between the two is really where the opportunity is. So I think it's really combining the two worlds in a really nice, elegant way without having anyone be in the room and having to do it for you. That's where you'll see the magic. Scott?
Yeah, and I'd add to that, I think for those people who are here in the industry for a long time, I know there's been this debate over and over again, like, where do you put the camera? Do you put it in the front of the room and the center of the room? And I think we've oscillated back and forth between that and had different solutions. And I think we finally came to the conclusion, like, it's not an either or, as Henry and Alan said, it's both. So I think we finally kind of nailed it for this solution. It really captures seeing everybody in the room, not inevitably creating an ear camera where there's something pointed at the side of your head. So I think the combination of it is going to be amazing. And for those of you who've been looking at this for many years, I'm hoping you're nodding your head saying, yes, this is finally what we need, because that's truly what we believe.
When it comes to the experience of seeing and hearing clearly in the rooms, I think there's a lot of different approaches as to how a remote participant might want to dial in, whether they want to focus on specific people or see everyone and see all the nonverbals. So maybe, Henry, a question for you is, how can that experience be controlled or chosen by the remote participant or even by IT through the admin for the system?
That's a great question. Maybe there's a two-part answer to it. So I'd say probably near term, what you'll see from us is a recognition that these sort of video experiences need a lot of kind of customization configurability. So as we built RightSight to speaker view and soon to launch grid view, you're going to see a lot of sort of knobs, controls, speed controls. We'll extend that sort of philosophy to Sight, so you will be able to adjust the speeds and some of the thresholds in the interface. And the way we'll expose that is through both using our Logitech Sync platform, so you'll be able to remotely deploy your configurations, your settings globally in a really simple way. And of course, we'll work with our friends at Microsoft, Zoom, and Google to make those controls also available to the on the interface itself, on the tab controller in the room, so that that room can customize some experience for them. Longer term, I think our vision for it is really to get the controls away from the in-room participants and give it to the remote participants. So imagine at home, you get to decide how quickly things switch. You get to decide, is it a speaker view or a grid view, and how many tiles you would see. And of course, you'll see that sort of experience from us as we deeper integrate our solutions with Microsoft, Zoom, and Google to enable that sort of world. I think that world's not too far away. I'm pretty excited to to democratize that experience to the remote participants. And I think we'll see that in the not too distant future.
I think there are certainly fans of this product and fans of that vision out there, because there's questions coming in from Howard T. and Jim L. about when is the public beta for this product available and when can we get our hands on it? Is that something maybe, Alan, you want to take a stab at for our fans?
Yeah, so of course we're announcing the product today. We're very excited about that. And then we'll be doing our public beta. That'll happen in January, February timeframe. That's when it'll start. And then the availability of the product will be in summer of next year.
So yeah, I think when it comes to talking about this system and this experience, it's part of this longer journey to deliver more equitable and more inclusive experiences. And Henry, what you're talking about earlier is there's a roadmap ahead, not only of our products, but of our partners out there and their vision for better experiences. But maybe if the team could take a moment to talk about how we as a company and we within video collaboration are using our own products to make our collaboration and meetings more equitable. I think some of our audience members are curious about that. Scott, maybe you want to take a stab at that.
Sure. Well, I think many of us know that the world has completely changed from, pre-pandemic, where I think we were using video for a very long time. And at that time, most of the problem was really taking a room and different rooms and connecting them together. And then we got plunged into the pandemic, this big experiment where we were all at home. I think we know that that largely worked together, where we were looking at ourselves in these small but equal size boxes. Now that we're moving to the hybrid world, I think many of us have experienced that it actually is harder, as we've talked about in today's presentation, that you may have not just one person like Alan who's worked his whole career remotely, but now you have a dozen people like Alan. And the experience gets a lot more challenged. So I think we partly have experienced this ourselves and using it every day and really sweating the details. So I think part of it is not just having the vision of what everyone else out there is experiencing, but also feeling it ourselves and knowing how to fix it. I'd say the other thing that has changed is that there's this idea that we're going to, quote, return to the office. But I think for us, and like many other companies, we're hiring people now all over the world. So in many cases, our teams are very distributed, and you may have a meeting where no one is, quote, in the office or in that particular office. So you need to make sure that you're very flexible so that as you have more and more remote people, that they're not treated as second-class citizens. So I think we really feel that pain ourselves, and I think that's part of the inspiration for this product.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, Alan, you're the product lead on this product, and you don't work out of the same office that we do. And you've often remarked about how the experience for you, kind of not being able to see clearly into meetings, it has been really a problem or a challenge the past couple of years. What part of that kind of inspired the thought or design behind this product and the experience we want to bring to life?
Yeah, so as Scott mentioned, most of my career I've worked in one Logitech office, but most of my team has worked in a different Logitech office. And so, I've experienced a lot of calls where I'm the one person calling in and, there's 1, 2, 3 people in the conference room. And certainly a few years ago, it was even worse where, maybe there are 2 people sitting at the end of the table and, I'd see the entire room and 2 little, very small people at the end. And that wasn't a great experience. When we did auto framing with our RightSight software, and then with RightSight 2, improved it with speaker view and then the upcoming grid view. I think it's come a long way. But still, if you call, again, I call into an office or into a meeting and, there's a handful of people sitting at a table. That's still happening now. And I just really just don't have a great view of everybody when they're talking. And so that's really what drove the experience we're looking for with Sight. It wasn't just me, of course. This is something that we've spoken to a lot of customers, a lot of our partners, and everybody is trying to figure out what's the best way to make these hybrid meetings better.
When it comes to the thoughtful design about the product, got an anonymous question here about what the Sight seems to be maybe a little bit tall on the table, or kind of not the most out of sight, if you will, on the table. So walk me through what was the thought behind the height of Sight, and will we be including any components to raise it above or to eye level, perhaps?
Okay. Yeah, actually a lot of thought in the initial design phase went into what's the appropriate height for Sight. So if you think about, where the best position for a video camera is, if I'm being videoed or if I'm on a call, it's actually right at eye height. But that's a little awkward when you're thinking about being in a meeting room and you've got a camera sitting at that height. You're kind of looking around it or trying to look over it. Not really a great experience. And so we didn't want to make it so high that it's going to be blocking people's view off. In fact, we actually dug up anthropometric data for populations of people around the world and said, how tall are people when they are sitting in a chair? And use that to kind of come up with the best height. On the other side of that is, we realize that a lot of people come into a meeting room, they bring their laptops, they open it up, and so it doesn't really make any sense to have a camera sitting in the middle of the table. It's going to be blocked off by everybody's laptops. So really the sweet spot that we've tried to hit is above the laptops, but still low enough that people are going to look over it, around it. And our thinking is, in some of our early testing of the product, it kind of disappears after you've been using it for a while. And so that's really our goal.
Yes, certainly. So the right height for Sight at the table, to be able to see and bring your laptops into the room. A lot of thought has gone into this product from the hardware or exterior design perspective. But maybe switching gears to thinking about the intelligence, and Henry, you were speaking earlier to this, and you also, Alan, with RightSight and Grid View. But there's a question from the crowd about how have we demonstrated artificial intelligence within maybe the VC group or these products in particular? What's the progress we've made so far? How are we using AI in the future?
I can maybe start, and Scott, if you want to add anything to it. Yeah, if you look at the trajectory of what we've done, we've done quite a bit of innovating, both in the audio, the video, and also the kind of the insights of the room. At the conference room, we spent an incredible amount of time perfecting the audio, and what you've noticed with Rally Bar Mini, our microphones are able to support much larger spaces than ever before in much more difficult environments, and that's due to machine learning, noise suppression, de-reverberation, and many other sort of audio algorithm enhancements. On the video front, we've made incredible improvements around the kind of the video experience that Alan alluded to earlier. So participant framing, not just face detection, but actual participant framing. So we can track who's the active speaker. We can track all the participants in total. We've extended that to the whiteboard. So now with Scribe, we're able to capture the whiteboard, and the amount of compute and processing that happens on Scribe to deliver that nice crisp image is quite incredible. The team did an amazing job. They're basically taking an image that's highly warped, de-warping it, keystone correcting it, removing and ghosting the presenter. And now a lot of these technologies you're seeing get extended to new devices. So we announced and launched Brio 500, the 505, which is our latest webcam that now takes some of our auto framing technology and extends it to the desktop. A lot of our noise suppression that we've done quite well in the conference room is being applied to some of our new headphones that are now able to be more resilient in various different environments, including Logitech. And now you're seeing a lot of these things come together in Sight. So Sight almost is like a superset of all these technologies. So Sight has the really advanced noise suppression. We have an entirely new beamform, machine learning-based beamformer technology that lets us to identify active speakers in incredibly accurate ways. We are able to frame participants in a very accurate way, and also detect where they're looking. And then looking ahead, I kind of mentioned this earlier, detecting the nonverbal cues, the head nod, the smirks. That's really where this stuff is going, to go beyond just active speaker, but active engaged participant. So we did quite a bit. I think there's quite a bit left for us. And what's exciting about Sight is we're essentially, as I said earlier, putting supercomputers throughout the room that gives us just this playground for innovation that we're going to leverage. And you're going to see a lot of really new ideas from us.
Yeah, I would add to that what's, I think, interesting here, but not obvious to people looking at here, is you think about Logitech as a hardware company, and you see that we're showing physical devices, but the transformation that we've done, I think, is pretty incredible. That when I started 7 years ago, we had very little software outside of firmware. But now when you look at the value here, we're showing you the hardware, but a lot of the power and the intelligence, as Henry said, it's really around the software and the system and all these things working together. And it's been an incredible transformation in being able to provide that experience. So I think what you'll find from us is that more and more of this value that we want to provide, whether it's AI or some of the analytics, will be done by software and system, not just about the individual hardware. Of course, it's a combination of the two things working together. But most of our team now, I bet most people listening here don't know that most of our team now is software, not hardware. And that's where a lot of the value and investment is that we're making.
I think this segues really nicely to another question from Howard in the Q&A here about what are the plans then to expand RightSight capabilities, maybe at home, but more so in the office, to address visual cues from windows or translucent surfaces. How does that work when we're seeing silhouettes of people or maybe people's faces even in the transparent glass of our offices? Henry, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, in the earlier call, I was asked a similar question, and we kind of gave a heads up on a couple of features that are coming, so I guess I'll share it here as well. So a lot of the feedback we've gotten over the last year has been about the experimentation that's happened in the office. Lots of different spaces being designed, open spaces, glass spaces, beautiful spaces that are maybe more optimized for the kind of in-room collaboration, and then all of a sudden the requirements for that space changed. So all of a sudden something might be a little bit more open than it was historically, and then some of the auto framing, the microphone pickup experiences need to adapt to that. So what you'll see from us in the coming months is a couple new features we'll call camera zone and mic zone, where you'll be able to specify what area you want the camera and the microphones to focus on. That way, anyone outside of that area would be essentially excluded, both in the kind of the grid framing or the microphone pickup. What we'll do, kind of similar to what we talked about earlier, is with Sync, we'll allow you to deploy these configurations globally. So you can imagine setting up kind of a camera zone for all your spaces, immediately just through Logitech Sync with very little configuration. So that's coming. That sort of technology will also get applied to Sight. So you can imagine kind of specifying kind of a zone, like a radius around the device, and saying anything outside of that, just ignore it. So those are the things that you can expect from us in the not too distant future.
Some unexpected sneak peeks maybe into our experience roadmap. So very exciting. You heard it live today. Maybe expanding more about thinking outside traditional spaces or meeting rooms. There's a question here from Howard again about, from Rob, about if we've thought about partnering with furniture manufacturers or office design manufacturers to think and expand beyond our video conferencing setup. What are plans there? What are thoughts there? Maybe starting off with you, Scott.
Yeah, we're doing a lot in the furniture space. If you look at some of our offerings, and you've seen some of our trade shows, we not only think about designing the products as they stand, but how they fit in with the environment. So I think you'll see some beautiful designed offerings where you have our cameras that are really custom design layouts, or the way we've built in with furniture. And I think you'll see that as a trend more and more, whether it's meeting booths where you need privacy, where today, I think a lot of times they're just designed without video conferencing in mind. So we're doing a lot of work with some of the leading furniture manufacturers around the world to kind of design these things together. And some of this stuff we've shown you, and then there are things that you'll see in the upcoming near future that I think are super exciting, that show it much more integrated together. So stay tuned for that. I won't spill the beans there yet, except there's more stuff to come.
Yes, we'll save that maybe for a future live event or Q&A, indeed. Yeah. Looking as well into the future, I've got a question from Bill about supply chain availability. Do we anticipate, given the challenges the last couple of years with supply chain, for that to affect our current slated site availability globally? Maybe Henry or Scott?
I can take it. Yeah, I would say whenever we launch something as exciting as Sight, it's usually not there's always a kind of availability challenge. It's less to do with components and what's been going on in the market. It just really has to do with just crushing demand. I think we experienced it with Logidoc. It was the hottest item out in the market. It was difficult to get them. And part of the reason why we see that kind of such high initial demand is I think we've done a pretty good job listening to the feedback and building the things that people are asking for. The second reason is we do early beta testing. So many of you who have been in our early beta testing know that we make some of our products available to some of you, and really the evaluation starts early. For Sight, based on the feedback we've gotten so far, I would fully expect to see high demand early on. We have a world-class supply team that's done incredibly well over the last years during this kind of supply crunch, and we're in a pretty good position when it comes to supplying components. But anytime we launch a new product that people are excited about, you clearly are going to expect to see higher demand than some of the supply, at least the initial supply, which is a big compliment to us, I think.
And we try to prioritize people who express interest first, so contact your sales rep and get first in line.
I think looking forward to the future as well, we've got another question from Jackie in the crowd about, hearing Bracken and Prakash talk about our big commitment to sustainability. And certainly we're shipping lots of great products out, but maybe starting with Sight, but to the rest of our video collaboration products, how do we think about our commitment to sustainability and our commitment to be climate positive by 2030? Alan, maybe you want to start with the thought behind Sight.
Yeah, so I'll speak to Sight, and then maybe one of the other guys can talk about Logitech on a broader scale. So with Sight, this idea of saying how do we make the product more sustainable, that was in the design from the beginning. And so in Sight, we use post-consumer recycled plastics, we use low carbon aluminum, we use FSC certified packaging. We've eliminated all poly bags in the packaging and replaced it with paper that can be easily recycled. The product is carbon neutral. And so from a sustainability standpoint, we're pretty excited about what we've done so far. And we have some things coming down the pipe that will actually make it even better.
Yeah, I would say just broadly from a portfolio perspective, this has been a big focus of ours. We probably haven't spoken enough about this, but you'll see us talk more and more about kind of our efforts there. As Alan said, we're using more sustainable materials with Sight, but that's also true for some of the other products we've recently announced. So the Brio 505 is actually one of the first webcams we built using post-consumer recycled plastics. I think it's like 65 to 70% PCR rated on certain colors, so it's a really, really high rating. So when you use this, Logitech really put our best foot forward in making sustainable products. That's also true for the Zone Vibe wireless headset. That's also made out of PCR, and the materials on there are also more sustainable. Roommate, that's one of the things, Alan, actually, you worked on Roommate a while back. It's also built on PCR plastic. That will continue to be kind of a theme from us across all of the different products, whether it's at home or the conference room. We want to minimize, to eliminate, as Bracken, our CEO, would say, to reverse our impact on the environment. And one way to do that is to use sustainable products and build out software features like low power modes to make sure we minimize the impact on the environment.
Yeah, I'd only add to that from the portfolio is that one of the things I really love working about Logitech is that sustainability. It's not a web page or a marketing program or even the recycled plastics, of which we do a lot, but really it's just a core value. And I think we just feel an obligation to make sure that everything we put out there that we take back. So I think we're only seeing the very beginning of what we can do and will do. And it's one of our top priorities to make sure that we are a leader and a driver in sustainability. We're doing a lot, but I think I would say to most of you, you haven't seen, even the beginnings of what we're going to be able to do there. And I'm just super excited about what we're doing and the fact that we're just all behind it from a values point of view.
Yeah, I know. I'm really proud to work for a company that embodies these values, not only from the products we ship out to certainly the marketing stories that we tell about it. So really excited for what we're going to accomplish ahead. Now, saving the best for last, thinking about the road ahead, Scott, maybe a question for you on how do you think about the journey that VC has been on so far, and thinking ahead, what's next? What do we have our vision and eyes set on?
Well, I'd say when I think about what's next, I have to give credit to my 12-year-old son when he was 12, and Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors. What do I mean by that? So about 6 years ago, I was early in Logitech, and I was thinking about how many people with video conferencing where they say, you know what, I would really like to be there, but I would really like to do a video call, but being there is really better. And then I was talking to my son about going to the Golden State Warriors game. They were at the time, the best season ever. And I asked him if he wanted to go, and he said, no. And I said, what do you mean you don't want to go? He said, well, I love seeing all the statistics in the game, and I love being able to pause it. And I know, Dad, you're probably a cheapskate, so you're going to have the worst seats. And he basically, as he described this thing, he was saying that maybe it's actually better to be remote than to be there. And I would say that insight from that 12-year-old really inspired me, and I think the rest of us, to think differently about video conferencing. Instead of thinking about it as something as a poor substitute for travel, we really wanted to think about it being better than being there. That's been our mantra. And we have a long way to go to meeting that vision. But I think when you see with Scribe on the whiteboard camera and the auto framing and now Sight today, we're really putting those pieces in place to hit that vision. So I would add to that, you think about the game where you have these statistics and insights. So we want to add a lot of statistics, how to make meetings from being, rated 2 out of 3 to maybe 4 or 5 or even better. So to ensure we have a long way to go to make sure that meetings are better. I'm super proud of what we've done. And I want to say, just for you guys and the marketing team, the product team, the design team, and everyone at Logitech, I'm just really proud of the transition we've gone from being a small entrant to market leader and really changing not only video conferencing, but the world. I think today is a big part of it, and there's just so much more to come. So thank you for all of you guys for what you're doing for us and for everybody out there. I'm just really proud of what we've done.
And we're really proud to announce this product as well as our new vision for the road ahead to the world. So thanks everyone for joining. This is the wrap of the live Q&A portion, but if you've got more questions, we'd love to answer them through the submitted Q&A box. So feel free to keep typing your questions in there. And if you want to stay in touch with us, you can find us on social at Logitech Business, or check out Sight and the rest of our product portfolio in the Attendee Hub. So for now, this is us bidding goodbye, and have a great rest of your day.